Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi there. My name is Shaun. I'm an executive director at 21st Century Management Consultants, and I head up the area of organizational design and also work with analytics and remuneration.
Following the COVID pandemic and the economic slump that has followed, are companies still engaged in organizational design and restructuring?
Yes, one would think they wouldn't because economic activity was low. And we expected to see it actually get quieter post-pandemic, especially due to the financial losses that a lot of companies suffered in the pandemic. But what we saw instead was that companies have actually started to redesign very aggressively and restructure very aggressively, and we've seen a number. We've seen requests for assistance from companies with this actually climb to pre-COVID levels and above in the last year, where companies are restructuring with the aim of becoming more efficient and restructuring themselves to make better profits with less, as opposed to what you could probably term a more relaxed attitude before COVID, where companies were making good profits. There was a mini boom, and companies felt more secure. Now they're having to make more with less, and that's what's driving the new, what we think is driving the new requests for all the restructuring that's coming through.
Is there a difference as to how companies are approaching restructuring?
Yes, because pre-COVID, in this country especially, what restructuring often meant was retrenchments and redundancies. And what it often meant was large groups of lower skilled workers being given their notice and leaving the company to save costs. So restructuring pre-COVID was very much viewed in a negative light, because whenever a company said we are restructuring, the first thing everybody in the company said, well, we wonder who's going to lose their job. What we've seen post-COVID is that the companies have become more responsive and more responsible, and are now approaching restructuring not from a cutting point of view, what we call a negative point of view, but from a positive point of view. So they want to keep what they have, but make it work more efficiently. So if I had to sum it up, it would basically be, especially as I say in this country, a more positive focus on doing things better rather than the previous negative focus of just cutting staff to save costs.
And what is moral restructuring?
So moral restructuring is really what we're seeing companies apply now. If you take this country, I mean, we have the highest unemployment figure in the world, sitting on any given day around 32%. So the point now is that, going back to the negative positive restructuring, in negative restructuring, companies didn't think much about cutting 4,000 workers off their payroll. What we've seen post-COVID is that companies have developed a little bit more of a conscience, I'd like to say, hopefully, and are starting to look at their workers. I think having to accommodate workforces during the pandemic, having to help workforces, having to carry on functioning while there's a pandemic going on, companies became more exposed to how important their workforces are to them. And hence, they are trying these days to make a more positive impact and not retrench large amounts of workers. Because the moment you retrench 1,000 workers, if it's a small town that's dependent on that industry, you don't only have the workers suffering, you have their families suffering, you have the small businesses in that area suffering. The knock-on effect of a company laying off quite a few workers, quite a few thousand workers, is huge. So what we do find is, and we encourage our clients to do this, to rather approach restructuring with a view towards moral restructuring, which is to see what can we do to improve what we have to, and get better at what we have to, without just taking the easiest route and cutting people. And that's really, in a nutshell, what we call the new moral restructuring, which we are very glad to be seeing, because it makes the whole process of restructuring a much more positive experience, both for us as the specialist consultants as well as for the client.